Are you watching the World Cup? If so, are you pronouncing words related to soccer and football confidently? Let's go through a few words at the start of class today, and please feel free to put your questions in the chat at any time. I'll take them live after we cover our first topic. And if you're watching later on, you can leave questions in the comments. So first of all, let's look at how to pronounce FIFA World Cup. FIFA is an abbreviation, and it follows the pattern of a lot of languages, not so typical for English. Letter I says the E vowel, and it has first syllable stress. So I would write that as fee. And then letter A says the or schwa vowel. It's reduced and short. So long on your fee and short on your fa. FIFA, FIFA. World Cup, we stress on cup, which means that world has to go by a little bit more quickly. And this can be challenging because you may find that the word world is difficult to pronounce. I do have a lot of videos for it here on the channel, but think of the letters OR as being the ER sound, were. You can even build it from were. And then as we move from the to the dark L, world, you just have a little bit of an sound there before your D. So in the IPA, you're just going to see and but as you're saying it, whirl, if you think of kind of gliding between those two sounds, it should help. And then cup is just a straightforward schwa, sound. So World Cup. So FIFA World Cup. And then looking at offsides. Offsides is also a little bit trickier than you might think. People sometimes have difficulty with the word off because it has the vowel. So I'll write it here with letters AW, like we spell it in words like law or saw. And then letters FF do say the f sound, so off. In offsides, we stress on sides. It's going to be longer. We have our I diphthong that slides. And then letter S at the end is going to say the Z sound. So he was offsides. The ref called offsides on the play. When we're talking about penalty kick, we have the main stress is on penalty, then kick gets some secondary stress. This is a compound noun. So in compound nouns, we always stress the first of the two nouns, same as in grocery store, sports car, etc. So within the word penalty, we stress on the pen syllable. Letter E is the vowel, like in the word pen or in the word red. You see that here. So you can think about it just like the same as the word pen. Then that means my letter A is a short, reduced little schwa, short little sound, penalty. Letter Y says the E sound. And then kick is kind of straightforward again with the I vowel in between, penalty kick. So they had a penalty kick. He scored the final point of the game on the penalty kick. And then referee has the stress on the last syllable re, which means the first re sound is going to be short and reduced. It does have some secondary stress because it does have the clear vowel. And we often also will just call this person the ref. That's an abbreviation for it. So same sounds at the beginning, ref. And then you can think about it as referee, or referee. It doesn't matter. The second R is just connecting the and E vowels, referee. So I go a little bit more with an I think. Some people would say more referee. Whatever's easiest for you, you just want to glide and connect referee. Or if that word gives you difficulty, just call them the ref. So tell me in the comments or in your live questions here today, what other words that you're noticing getting used a lot in watching World Cup. Maybe you have country names that you want help with. There's a lot of resources for those here on the channel as well. We'll go back to our topics of fluent speaking and connected speech next week, but I had a number of requests for World Cup related words over the last few weeks. That's something that people are talking about and noticing as they're watching the games. So if your country is playing or if you're a soccer fan, let's just take a quick look, one last thing, and then I'll turn to your questions. Let's just take a look at football versus soccer. So if I were going to make a joke and say, how do you say football in American English? you would pronounce it soccer. Football, of course, is more commonly used everywhere else in the world, FIFA football, football players. But in the US, of course, we have American football. And so when you say football here, they're thinking about a different sport. So we call football soccer. So if you want to say football in American English, you pronounce it with first syllable stress. Letters O-O say So watch out, you don't want football, not an oo sound like food, but the sound like could and should. And then we have secondary stress on ball. That has the vowel, ball. So not an ball. Although if the difference between and is kind of not that noticeable in a lot of dialects of English. So I would say for football, we'll erase you for a minute here, soccer. Thinking about it, you can still think of it's the same as the word foot. Just try not to think of those OOs as oo. You can think it, if it helps you to think about it more like like we have in should or put, or even just foot. So, for example, put the football on the field, football. And then we have a long, clear all. I would actually probably write ball with AW as well to know that that vowel is this sound. So football is also a compound noun, but it's all one word. So we had penalty kick, a two-word compound noun phrase. In football, it's just one compound noun. And then, of course, for soccer, we again have here the letter O says the ah vowel, not rounded. You don't want soccer, but rather just thinking it as a nice open ah, like in father, soccer. And then I still have my tight sound, but it's just short and reduced. The IPA for soccer, you'll see it as first syllable stress, soccer. So they played soccer in high school. The soccer fields around the countries are excited and ready to accept the FIFA football players. I will call them the football players because most of them are not US players, and so they are football players and not soccer players. Okay, but those of course are used interchangeably. They mean the same thing, just the US versus non-US terminology. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm very sorry about the late start this morning. I had a few technical difficulties, but I'm glad you're here. You found me, you stuck it out. And if you're watching this later on as a replay, this is a section of class where I take viewer questions. You can ask about pronouncing words, fluent speaking, whatever is going on for you in your speech so that you feel more confident while you're speaking English. And you can get help as well on our website, speechmodification.com. There you can see our resources, our online courses, and our new smart app that is customized for your individual accent training. So I hope you'll check that out as well. So we have a question about therapeutic. This just came up with a client the other day where we were reading an article about therapeutic, and I think it's a great word. So it's stressed on the pew syllable, and it's kind of a weird spelling with that EU. So it does have the p, y, and u sounds, pew. So I will rewrite that with a Y and OO, pew. And then we have a little secondary stress on the ther syllable. So letters ER say the air sound. It's a voiceless TH, not a there, but ther. Ther. And then letter A is going to say a schwa. Stress on pew. We're going to flap that T. It'll sound like a light D. And then the I and K sounds. So I would rewrite that as therapeutic. So it was very therapeutic to take a walk in nature. She found it very therapeutic to talk through her problems with an advisor. Yeah, good word. Thank you and welcome back. It's nice to see you here again this week. You always have such good questions, so thanks for being a part of the channel. Okay, we have a question about words that end in X, like fox, box. Yes. So in these words, letter X says K and S. So both fox and box. Oops, I'm starting to write it with a KS instead of the X. Fox and box. X is one of the pronunciations of the letter X. We also have G, like in executive, it can say the G and Z sounds. And it can also say X, it can also say something else. I do have several videos about pronouncing X, but let's just talk about your two words. The vowel letter O says the ah vowel here. So in the IPA for fox, you're going to see it like that, and for box, like that. So I would rewrite those probably with an AH and a KS. Fox, there's a fox in the box. If you have trouble with that vowel sound, box, you can think about the bottom of the box, on the box, another word that has the ah vowel, to help you match that sound. But yeah, great question. Thanks for bringing that up. So yeah, letter X doesn't have its own sound. It'll often stand in for other sounds. And usually it's the K and S or the G and Z sounds. Sometimes it's voiced. Okay, we have a question about affect and effect, and are they pronounced the same? So yes, these are basically pronounced pretty much the same. So what was the effect? And it won't affect me. They both have the I. And then the stress is on the fect syllable, effect. We do have also a noun, which is, or an adjective actually. No, it is a noun, which is affect. Someone's affect is like how they're presenting themselves, their emotional state, how they look, how they seem emotionally. And that sounds like ah with the black cat vowel, affect. So it's the same second syllable, but in this case, because it's the noun, the first syllable gets stressed, affect, versus affect. Did it affect you? Verb is going to have the second syllable stress. This is also a noun. What were the effects? But it's also stressed on the second syllable. So not all nouns are stressed in the first syllable, verbs in the second. But when there's two of the same spelling, when one is a noun and a verb, often they follow that pattern of noun being stressed at the beginning, like affect, and verb, the second syllable, like effect. Okay, thank you. Good question. Welcome, Undead Heart. It's nice to see you back. I'm not sure. I think we might have missed you last week, but I'm glad you're here today. Question about the dark L. In a word like bulb, light bulb, why your dark L might sound too open. So an open so bulb. Yeah, I've worked on this word with a number of people where I think bulb is particularly difficult. It's similar to words like dull or lull, gull also. This is one where I do actually think we pull it back more into the throat. Gull. So even though it's a schwa there, it's, technically you're going to see that for gull and that for bulb with a schwa, stress schwa. Yeah, I don't know. It just somehow gets pulled further back. And then probably also because you have to do the b at the end, bulb, that might be having a tendency to pull forward, bulb. And so you're noticing that it's opening up too much. Yeah, try thinking of it as kind of being more in the throat. I don't recommend that just generally for dark L, but in these words, dull, lull, gull, I feel that my tongue is pulled back to achieve that combination of that vowel with that dark L. And I'll give that some more consideration if I think of any other tips for you. I'll send you that another way. Thank you for being here and for testing out the app for me. I'm glad to hear it's been working well for you so far. Okay, we have a question about whether or not the L in the word wolf is silent. No, we don't say woof. Wolf. It's like the word wool plus an F. So in wool, wolf, this is a case where the classic dark L, where the front of the tongue doesn't lift, where you can make this sound just by creating the shape with the back of the tongue. So it's definitely not going to be wolf, wolf. You don't want to have anything between the and the wolf. And you might find this is one case where it's easier to cheat and not lift the front of the tongue. If I'm just saying wool, I'm going to finish that by lifting the front of my tongue. Wool. The wool is ready to go. Wool. But if I'm saying wolf, I feel like that is one where the back of the tongue really lifts for that dark L, and then we don't lift in the front. So don't overpronounce it, but keep the L in there because it affects how the vowel sounds in the word wolf. Yeah, I think I probably have a video for that here on the channel. After class, I'll go through, and in the description or in a comment, I'll put some timestamps in and some links to videos that go into more detail on some of the questions you're asking now. Okay, great. I have a question. Welcome from Korea. Nice to see you. For the word stigmatizing. So stigmatizing. So we have first syllable stress here, stigmatizing. Letter I says the I sound. Stigma. Letter A is going to be the schwa. Stigmatizing, we have secondary stress on the tizing syllable, which means the T is going to be a true T, tizing. The I is going to say a clear vowel, the I diphthong. I'm almost out of room. And then we'll have our zing at the end. So I would rewrite that as stigmatizing. It was very stigmatizing when they made that comment. Yeah, good word. Thank you for being here and for bringing that up. And hopefully that clarification made sense to you for stigmatizing. Okay, good. Let's see. We have a question about respiratory. So this is a word that's so different in British English. They say respiratory, and we say respiratory. So I think their pronunciation makes a little bit more sense because if you see well, they changed the ending, respiratory, and we changed the beginning, respiratory. So we kind of drop this here and they drop this here. So I'll just give you the American English in this live class, but in my video, I do have a video, I think, covering both British and American for this one. Then I can give you a link to that after. So we have first syllable stress, respiratory. The letter E says the eh. So it's like the word rest at the beginning, respira. So we condense this rather than respira, we drop that syllable. We just go right from the P to the respira. And then that letter A is going to be an and then we have secondary stress on the T, tori, so true T there, and E. So thinking of it as respirator, E. This is long, and the rest are short, but this does have a clear vowel and a true T. Respiratory. It's a little bit of a mouthful. He was in respiratory distress. The respiratory therapist came in to help him work with his breathing. Okay, very nice. Yeah, good question. Definitely a tricky word. Doesn't exactly, the way we say it doesn't exactly match the spelling in that kind of shortened, reduced way. Okay. So how to pronounce Indonesian, a person from Indonesia. So a person or something that is from Indonesia is Indonesian. In an American English, we don't say this as zien, we tend to just say jeun, so we use the zh sound. So stresses on the ni syllable, clear vowel there, and then si says the zh sound, like in measure, and then a schwa at the end. So that would look like in the ni jeun. So I write the zh sound with ZH because it's the same mouth placement that I have for SH. Shh, it's just that my voice is on there. Indonesian. Indonesian. Yeah, so avoid using a clear O there. You want an because that syllable is not stressed. Yeah, so I have an Indonesian neighbor. I love Indonesian food. Yeah, good word. Thank you. Thanks for all of your questions today. It's nice to see you here. And as I said earlier, I hope that I didn't miss out on some of you because I was a little bit late getting started, had some technical difficulties with the setup. But we're here and we'll take a few more questions and comments, and then we'll probably wrap up a little bit early today. But I should have time for your second question, so if you have more to ask about, feel free to ask multiple questions today. I'm going to turn to some other recent requests. I have had some really great comments and questions on the channel lately, so you're always welcome to leave those types of questions. Okay, so we had a question about the word pedagogy. So pedagogy. So in pedagogy, we have the stress on the first syllable ped. So we'll have the stress marker, the vowel, peda. Letter A is going to be a schwa, unstressed. First letter G is going to be a g sound, like in go, pedaga. Letter O has secondary stress, so it's going to be the ah vowel. And then the second letter G is going to be the j sound, like in jump. So we have pedagogy. So pedagogy. Very good. And we had a question about the word dichotomy. So there's a little bit of interesting spelling for dichotomy. It's an example of a CH saying the K sound, which is one of the, usually says ch or k. In this word it says k, the K sound. So we have stress on the ka syllable. Letter O says the ah vowel, ka. And we have secondary stress on the first syllable di. Letter I here says the I diphthong. So a little bit of secondary stress, di, ka, and then we're going to flap that T, kada, not kata, but nice light flap. Then a schwa for the next O, and then me at the end. So that sounds like di, ka, da, me. Yes, there was a dichotomy among the decisions. Okay, good. We have a question about how to pronounce R and flap T together, because sometimes you have to think a lot to say things like order, harder, sort of. Yeah, those are definitely some of the hardest combinations when you have to do flap T and R, especially something like order or harder, where you have another R following. Let's start with your question about sort of, because that is a little bit easier because there's not another R here. So this is going to be flapped, as you noticed, and then we have our or. What I've found helps my clients if they're trying to do order or sort of harder is that thinking of, instead of, when I'm just saying, for example, it's hot out, or get it. As I flap those T's, there's no R before it. My tongue is coming right behind my teeth. Get it. Hot out. But when I'm doing order, sort of, the tip of my tongue is not coming as far forward because the placement for the or, the back of my sides of my tongue need to be braced against the inner upper teeth, or, and then I just lift the front of the tongue, and wherever it connects, which is usually further back, is where I'm going to make my flap sound. If I'm trying to do or and then bring the tongue forward, order, I'm probably going to end up with too strong of a D there. Like I hear a lot of people say order, strong D there. And you really still want that light flapping, which I can only get if I just keep the back of the tongue in the same place and really keep it braced. Order, sort of. I don't need it as much on sort of as I do on order, because when I'm doing order, my tongue has to be ready to be back here as well without doing order, like having to drag it back. So try saying or and leave your flap out for a minute. Or. And now go from ord, and lift the front of the tongue really lightly. Order. So my tongue stayed mostly in the same spot for this, and the front just lifted a little as I released the tightness in the back, and I pulled that tightness right back in. Same thing with harder. Start with harder, and then harder. So you're just kind of adjusting where the flap gets made in order to be able to fit it between those R sounds. So that might have been a lot more detail than you wanted, but that's what I walk my clients through that has helped them. And that's what I have built into the feedback for my Smart app, so that when you're using that and you're working on a difficult word, you can say, you know, what should I change? What can I do differently on this word order? Or when I have a flap T and R, you can ask it, can you give me more words that have this combination? Smarter, harder, order, border, etc. And it can give you a lot of extra practice and feedback. Okay, that one was good. You probably pulled the tongue back or did this placement here. So it's going to give you that kind of feedback as though I were working with you. So I highly recommend that too if you're looking for a little bit more advanced help. Okay, welcome from Iran. Nice to see you here. I'm glad you were able to make it. We have a question about tell versus tail. So we have the vowel here, like in red tent, and the a diphthong, like in tail. So the main difference between these two vowels is that L is going to be a little bit more open, and it's not going to glide. It's going to be flat. Tell. So it's very central. Whereas tail is going to start a little bit more closed than tell, and then it's going to glide even more closed. So it starts in the A position with a tense A, and then it glides A. Also, as I'm doing tail, because it has this, ends on this high front A, it's going to have vowel to vowel linking. So it's going to, whereas tell, I can just basically go right from my to my L, tell. In a tail, I have this little y sound connecting, and then my sound here, tail. So it's not really two syllables, it's not tail, but we go through all of those vowels and all of that motion to say the A here versus the here, tell and tail. Same thing for fell and fail, pell and pale, well and whale. Yeah, definitely a difficult combination. I think the L makes it a little trickier to do these vowel contrasts. That's also something that the app will walk through and give you a lot of examples of. And I do have some videos for that here on the channel as well, so check back after class for links in the description to give you some more details on that topic. Great. Okay, we'll take a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up for today. I had a question about the word brethren. This is definitely a tough one, so thank you for bringing that up. So in brethren, we have first syllable stress. Both of these vowels, brethren, are vowels. Since this one is unstressed, it's going to be very short. So we have this is a voiced th. Like in the or that, brethren. Yeah, I'm going to put it as an You might also see it as a schwa, brethren, run. It's going to be pretty short and reduced, so it may be a schwa in the dictionary. Focusing on the it's actually very similar to breath. It's just that it's voice. So say the word breath and then breath. And then just start your ren as a new syllable, brethren. I'll write it like that, and we'll leave the vowel a little indeterminate, very short and reduced, brethren. So to pronounce brethren naturally, also try practicing it in some short phrases, amongst his brethren, amongst my brethren, etc. Okay, yes, I am, this is an American accent channel. I teach American accent, and that is my accent within America. It's kind of a Midwestern, West Coast accent. Nice to see you. Welcome. Okay, couple more, and then if you have, if you're watching later on and you have a question, you can certainly put that in the comments, and I will give you resources here on the channel to answer your question. But I want to take a few more live questions. So we have a question about the word luggage. So in luggage, we have first syllable stress. The two G's say the G sound, and this G says the J sound, just like in pedagogy that we were talking about before. So in luggage, letter U says the schwa vowel. Luggage. This is going to be very reduced schwa, and then we have the J sound at the end. G is silent. So it doesn't follow the rule of the E making the A say its name like it would in name or face. It's just a reduced vowel there. So thinking about it like luggage. I'll rewrite it with DGE. You could think of it as J, but we only use the letter J for the J sound at the start of words or in the middle, not at the end. So she brought too much luggage. The luggage was very heavy. What is your luggage allotment? Okay, very good. Welcome. Nice to see you here from Brazil. Thanks for being here. And okay, another question we had recently was about the word paranoid. So in paranoid, for most of the US, letters AR are going to be the air diphthong, like airplane or up in the air. First syllable stress, so we stress on pair. This A says schwa, and then we have an oi diphthong, like in void or boy at the end, so oi. So thinking of it as pair, noid. I'll write it with OY. I mean, we often spell that with OI as well. You can think at the end of the word is just like the word annoyed, except we're not really stressing on the last syllable here. So paranoid. There are some regions where you might hear it more like paranoid with the a vowel. That would be a New York or Boston accent. More typical across broader sections of the US, paranoid. But it's not wrong to say paranoid. Kind of depends on where you are, though. You want to listen to those around you and listen to which accent, which dialect is being spoken. Okay, we have a question about the word rarely. Yeah, this is another tough one because of the double R's and the L. So I'm going to rewrite it as rare because I want you to have know about this air. Again, just like in paranoid, we have the air for letters AR. And then ly, second syllable is unstressed. So rarely. If that gives you trouble, try just starting with air and then add your second R back. Air, rare. Then finally add ly, rarely. So I rarely do that. He rarely says he's sorry. It's very, very rarely. Okay, good. Nice question. Thank you. A couple more and then we'll wrap up for today. If you're just getting here, feel free to put your questions in the chat and you can ask about them live or you can ask later on. We have a question about clinging and bringing. So clinging and bringing. So both of these, the challenge is that you're having to do inging. You're having to do two INGs in a row, and you don't want to have a little g sound in there. Not clinging or bringing, but just inging. Another word would be singing as well. Both of them have the I vowel for the ing, so try not to do clinging, not too E-like, more of an I. But know that because this vowel is followed by the ng sound, that you're going to end up with a little bit more of a raising vowel. So it doesn't go all the way to E. I'm not doing clinging, clinging. It's still the I sound, but it sounds a little different in a word. That vowel sounds different than it does in a word like it or sit. So I would just rewrite that as cling, ing. And then as you're trying to do clinging, bringing, just practicing dropping the out of the ng position, ing, and then going right back into it without a hard release of air. When I get clinging is when I'm building up pressure and bursting out that g sound, and I don't want any g here, just the ing, singing, clinging, bringing. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. Okay, we have a question about potty versus party. Yeah, this is a frequently asked question because, of course, people don't want to be trying to say party and accidentally saying potty. So in British English, potty, they're going to use basically the same pronunciation for these because they don't do the tight back R that we do in American English. So I would say probably this is the one that you're going to need to work on to be able to say it correctly. So you're going to try for having that starting just with the R. So building a nice tight back R, and then par. And when I'm saying why I said R first and then par is that if I close my lips for the P, but my tongue isn't ready, I'm going to get pa. It's going to be too open and not have that tight R. And then it'll sound like potty. So par, party. Make sure your tongue is ready before you even say your P sound. And then we flap that T. So first syllable stress, party. Pa, potty is just the ah vowel. So thinking about that like pa, potty. So they had a potty for the toddler, and then there was a party for the teenager. Okay, good. We have a question about appreciated it and appreciate it. Okay, yeah. So if I'm doing appreciate it, these link together, and I end up with something that's like a D there, appreciate it, right? That it flaps, it's a light flap, but the D, it sounds like a D on the it. And then we have second syllable stress, appreciate it, So a little y vowel to vowel linking there. Second syllable stress. So appreciate it, I appreciate it, is going to have that D sound. But if I'm making it past tense, I appreciated it, I'm going to end up with did it at the end. Not just did, but did it. So thinking of that as, I like to write it this way, did it with two Ds. Because it's how we would say the flap in a word like middle where it had two Ds. So let's do appreciated it. So still linking there. So I end up with the same beginning, appreciated it, appreciated it. So they appreciated it when we gave them enough money to survive. They appreciated it when we thanked them for their work. I appreciate it when you attend class and ask great questions like you've been doing today. Okay, a few more. Welcome. If you're just joining us, I'm seeing your questions and comments now, so I'll turn to them. We have a question about the word vanilla. So what I most often hear an error on here is on the vowel sounds. This is an I sound stressed in the middle syllable, like the word nil. Last A says and first A also says So not va or va, but just a short little va and la at the end, vanilla. So IPA, va, stress on nil, so they preferred vanilla cake. Vanilla ice cream is usually creamy color. Good, okay. Yeah, watch that you don't have nila, not an E sound, and that you're using that American L sound. Okay, and then lastly, we have a question about earlier, another tricky RL word. So this one, even though it's spelled like ear, just has the sound, no glide in the first part, just lee, and then another earlier. But you hear how it sounds choppy if I say earlier. That's because I link from the E to the and I have vowel to vowel linking there. So I'm going to end up with a little little y sound linking those. Earlier, earlier. I don't have to hit that y really hard. It should just happen naturally as I'm sliding. But getting that tight sound and connecting between those vowels, you're going to end up hearing that. Okay, we have a question about the word, how to pronounce the word Jewish. So in the word Jewish, we have the U vowel for letters EW and the J sound, first syllable stress, Jewish, and then the so an I vowel and a sh sound. So in the dictionary, you're not going to see anything between that U and the I, but it's another example of vowel to vowel linking. As I'm saying, going from that rounded U to the unrounded I sound, I'm going to have a little W connecting them. So it's not the same as if I'm saying the full word wish with a strong W, but Jewish. The W sound just naturally connects the U and that next vowel. So the Jewish faith sometimes celebrates the Sabbath on Friday night or Sabbath on Saturday and Friday night. Okay, thank you. I hope that helps settle your debate with your friend. Okay, we have a question about the difference between real and real. So the only difference here is in the meaning. This is what we talk about when we're talking about a film or a reel of something, or Instagram reel, and real as in reality, same exact pronunciation. So they both in the dictionary are going to have just the I, and ul sounds, real. So I'd like to make a reel about real life. Same exact pronunciation, just different spelling and different meaning. Yeah, good question. Spelling is definitely kind of confusing, but both EE and EA are common ways we spell that E vowel. Okay, wonderful. It's been great having you here, spending some time with you on Saturday morning, and you can get a lot more resources here on the channel, on our playlists. Do check out our website, speechmodification.com, if you're interested in going a little deeper. We have online courses and a smart app that you can check out. And also leave comments. Let me know what you'd like to see in future classes. If I didn't get to your question, you can leave that in a comment and I'll follow up with you. I'll be back again Tuesday with a new video, and next Saturday we'll have our live class. Thanks so much for practicing with me today, and I look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com. Remember, if you want to sound like a native speaker, you can do it. speechmodification.com. Bye, everyone. Looking forward to seeing you again soon.